I no longer remember the face of my first grade teacher, nor do I still have the clumsy crayon drawings from those days. But there is one memory that returns each night, especially when the wind whispers past my window. Back then, we had a small classroom project. Write a letter about ourselves and tie it to a balloon. The teacher called it a message to a stranger. Each of us was excited, hunched over our desks scribbling drawings of houses, dogs, or simple lines like, "My name is Alex. I like chocolate ice cream." I didn't think much of it as I let my balloon drift into the late afternoon sky. The wind was strong, and it vanished quickly into the clouds. The class laughed, then forgot. But years later, grown and far from that playground, I still remember the pale golden light of that afternoon, and the strange sensation that I had thrown a part of myself into the world, never imagining someone would keep it forever. Now, sitting in a modest apartment with plain white walls and a seemingly peaceful life, I realize this. Some things we consider harmless, childish games, passing gestures, are often the beginning of something we can never escape. The things I once dismissed as coincidence, a photograph, muddy footprints by my door, now return with clarity, like echoes of someone who never looked away, not since the day the balloon left my hand and disappeared into the sky. That rainy night was just one among hundreds of my childhood, but it was the first time I felt truly not alone in my own room. I didn't see anyone. Only darkness, the gentle patter of rain on the tin roof, and the streetlight's dull glow bleeding through the window blinds. But I knew the door to my room was open, even though I distinctly remembered closing it before bed. My mom was strict about that. I used to talk in my sleep, and she'd always say, "Close the door so the TV downstairs doesn't keep you up." And I always listened. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was the wind, I told myself, or the cat nudging it open. But something didn't sit right with me. Over the next few days, I began to notice odd little things. My pillow slightly shifted before I even lay on it, a smudge of dust missing from my desk, a toy car set neatly beside my bed like someone had played with it and put it back just so. Then, on a quiet Saturday afternoon while tidying up, I found it. A small envelope, pale yellow. No stamp. No return address. On the front, just my name. Block letters, evenly spaced, written with a shaky hand like someone unused to writing. I remember my palms going damp as soon as I saw it. I didn't open it right away. I just stood there, holding it, feeling like I was clutching something that shouldn't exist in my room. I brought it down to the kitchen and handed it to my mom. She turned it over, smiled, and said it was probably a mix-up. Could be those neighborhood kids playing tricks. I'll ask Mrs. Dung next door if her boys dropped it. But when she turned her back to get some water, I slipped it into my coat pocket. That night, after she went to sleep, I shut my bedroom door tight, turned on the desk lamp, and opened the envelope. Inside was a piece of folded cream-colored paper, slightly yellowed at the edges. On it, written in neat but deliberate handwriting, were these words: "I saw you that day at the park. You wore a blue shirt, holding a red balloon. You didn't see me, but I saw you smile." I read it over and over again. No name, no greeting, just that. A simple statement. Someone knew who I was, had watched me, and I never knew. But here's the thing. I didn't wear a blue shirt the day I released the balloon. I wore red and white stripes. The blue shirt? That was 2 weeks later, on a school field trip to Central Park. And yes, I had a red balloon with me then. I remember because Mom bought it near the ticket booth and I tied it to my backpack the whole day. How did they know? Back then, my young mind didn't think of words like premonition or surveillance. I only felt it was strange, maybe a little scary, but also strangely exciting. A tug of war between curiosity and unease. I started waiting for more letters. And just as I half expected, another envelope came, this time tucked behind my math textbook in my home desk drawer. Nobody knew. I didn't tell my mom. Not my best friend. Somehow I felt, if I told, the letters would stop. Or worse, the person writing them would be angry. I began checking under pillows, inside drawers, under my bed, every morning and night. Not looking for a stranger, but for the letters. I didn't know why, but receiving them slowly became part of my life. A secret game between me and someone. It wasn't until the fifth letter that I realized the game wasn't fun anymore. Because that letter had a photo. It was a picture of me, standing in my room, taken from the far corner where my bookshelf now sat. The curtains were half pulled, my night light glowing faintly. I was wearing dinosaur pajamas. And I knew exactly when the photo was taken. One night not long ago, when I'd woken up at midnight, gone to the bathroom, and paused by the window because I thought something had moved in the shadows outside. I never told anyone about that moment. But now someone not only knew, but had captured it, preserved it, and sent it back to me like a message. I don't remember how long I kept that photo, maybe a few days, maybe weeks. I hid it beneath the drawer liner, tucked it away like somehow, if I didn't see it, it would disappear. But it didn't. It lingered in my thoughts every night, the soft glow of my night light, the curtain slightly parted, my face frozen toward the window, unmoving like a statue. Then came the second photo. I found it inside an old sketchbook left in the attic of my grandparents' house. I never thought I'd flip through that notebook again, until one summer afternoon, while visiting the countryside, I wandered off in search of a quiet hiding place. I remember the moment I turned to the last page. The photo wasn't glued in, just loosely wedged between the paper. It slipped out when I tilted the sketchbook, floating gently to the dusty wooden floor. I bent down, picked it up, and my heart nearly stopped. It was me in the woods, crouching beside a decaying tree stump, fiddling with a large leaf in my hands. I was smiling so brightly, but I had no idea who took it. I didn't know when it was taken. I couldn't recall anyone holding a camera that day. I stared hard at the background, thin trees stretching skyward, filtered light dancing through the canopy, and a flicker of red fabric to the left. Maybe one of my friends? Or someone else? The photo was taken from behind me. A slight angle, as if someone had hidden behind the brush, capturing the moment without my knowledge. The thing is, I remember that day perfectly. I was about 8. My cousins and I had gone into the little forest behind my grandparents' place, looking for bird nests. We laughed, played, even competed to find heart-shaped rocks. But I was certain, absolutely certain, no one had a camera. I asked them, eventually, after a few days of hesitation. Everyone said no. None of them brought one. None of them remembered seeing a stranger nearby. From that point on, I couldn't look at photos of myself the same way. Every old family picture, holidays, birthdays, Christmases, I'd scan the edges, search the shadows, study every corner for the trace of something or someone that didn't belong. I began doubting everything familiar, the bush outside my window, the curtain's faint swaying, a whisper of a camera shutter. Not because I knew who was watching me, but because I was starting to understand they'd been watching me for a very long time, and I had never known. Some memories don't fade with time. They stay sharp, uncomfortably vivid, even when the rest of childhood turns blurry at the edges. One of those memories came back to me recently, not as a story someone told or a photograph I found, but as a physical echo, an ache in my shoulder that never quite went away. It happened late one night, sometime in early winter, maybe when I was 9. I remember the cold more than the date, the kind that soaked into the wooden stairs and made every surface in the house feel brittle. I had gone to bed like usual, curled up in flannel pajamas, listening to the hum of the radiator. Then I woke up. Or at least, I think I did. The dream was hard to separate from waking. In it, I was standing in the hallway upstairs, facing the staircase. The lights were off, but a thin yellow glow spilled from beneath my mother's bedroom door. I remember the silence most. It was so complete, so unnatural, it made my skin crawl. I turned toward the stairs. My feet felt heavy, my limbs slightly numb, as if sleep still clung to them. And then, suddenly, I was falling. Not stumbling, not slipping, falling. My body pitched forward, weightless for a terrifying second before I hit the first few steps, then tumbled down, landing hard on the wooden floor at the bottom. I woke up screaming. My mom came running, her face pale with panic. She held me, inspected my arms and legs, and asked if I'd had a nightmare. I was crying too hard to speak. My knee was bleeding, my shoulder already swelling. The doctor said I was lucky, no concussion, just bruises. Mom explained it away as sleepwalking. He's always had a vivid imagination, she told him, with a strained smile. Must have dreamed something and wandered out of bed. I wanted to believe her. I did. Until the image came back, weeks later, while I was brushing my teeth. That moment, right before the fall, when I turned my head and looked down the hallway. There was someone there. A figure, barely lit, standing just past the bathroom door, motionless. I hadn't noticed it at first. Maybe my mind had shielded me from it. But it wasn't a trick of light or the shape of a coat-rack. It had depth, shoulders, a head tilted slightly to the side. And though I couldn't see its face, I remember the posture, like it had been waiting, watching. And maybe, just maybe, it was the one that pushed me. I began to connect the dots. Not consciously, at first. It was more like a quiet fever, spreading silently from dreams into waking hours, from scattered memories into a stream of growing clarity. Each fragment from over the years, the letter, the photographs, the shadow in the hallway, they began to settle into place, like pieces in a puzzle I hadn't realized I was solving. And at the center of it all, one truth stood out with terrifying certainty. I was never truly alone. At first, I told myself it was just paranoia. But there's only so much you can explain away before it stops being coincidence. No one gets anonymous letters for 7 years straight by accident. And it's no longer a childish prank when one of the photos shows me sleeping, and in the corner of the mirror, a pair of eyes reflecting back that aren't mine. I remember one gray afternoon when I was 12. My teacher had called in sick, and I came home earlier than usual. I unlocked the front door and called out to my mom. No response. The house was silent. I walked through the living room. Everything was as it should be. But when I entered my room, I stopped short. Someone had sat on my bed. I didn't know because of any visible indentation. I knew because of my body pillow. It was always perfectly aligned with the headboard, a little obsession of mine. And that day, it had been rotated, exactly 45 degrees. As if someone had tried to put it back the way it was, without realizing how well I knew every inch of that room. A chill ran down my spine. I backed out slowly, then checked every window, every door. All were locked. But from that day on, I stopped wondering how someone got in. I started wondering if they'd ever left. No matter where I was, home, school, my grandparents' house, summer camp, I felt someone walking half a step behind me. Watching, always just beyond my periphery. Once, during a class field trip, I heard the unmistakable click of a camera behind me. I turned. No one was there. But the next day, I found a photograph tucked into my backpack. Me, standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out at the horizon. Alone. There was no one else in the frame. Not even the person who had taken the picture. I didn't tell my mother. A wall had formed between me and the rest of the world. I still smiled, still did my homework, still played with friends. But inside me, every beam of light seemed to curve inward toward a growing darkness. The question that wouldn't leave me, who was watching me, and why? I started testing. I wrote a fake letter, folded it into an envelope identical to the ones I'd been receiving, and hid it in the back of my drawer. The next morning, it was gone. No one in the house knew. I was sure of it. I kept a journal. Every strange noise, every whisper in the dark, every time I thought I felt someone brushing past my arm in a place no one should be, I wrote it down. Not to prove anything to others, but to remind myself what was real. That I was being watched. Not by a ghost. Not by some spirit. Not by anything supernatural. But by a person. Someone who knew my habits intimately. Someone who knew whether I preferred milk or tea. Who knew exactly how long I liked my toast browned. Who knew where I once hid a silver music box I hadn't touched in years. Who knew, perhaps better than I did, how many times my heart beat per minute when I was fast asleep. And when that truth finally came into focus, it didn't hit me like a shock. It wasn't a scream in the dark. It was like the last drop of water spilling from a glass that had already been full for a long time. A stillness, but absolute. I didn't try to deny it anymore. I was left with only one question. Why? I've moved house 4 times in the past 3 years. The first time was for work. The second, I told myself, was for more peace and quiet. The third needed no excuse. That night, I heard the kitchen window slide open from the inside, even though I live alone, and everything was always locked. The fourth move brought me here. A small apartment on a high floor. No balcony. Only one entrance. I chose it for that reason alone. Not for charm. Not for price. Just because it's easy to control. I'm an adult now. I have a stable job, a reliable old car, and every kind of security gadget money can buy. But I don't sleep well. Not really. Even with the nightlight on, the radio humming in the background, and the curtains drawn tight, I still wake up some nights, heart racing, soaked in sweat, with the overwhelming sense that someone had just been standing at the foot of my bed. I used to think the fear came from a strange childhood. But then, on a quiet Saturday night, I received a package with no name. Inside was a small, leather-bound notebook. Old. Worn. It took me 5 minutes to build up the nerve to open it. All the pages were blank, except the last one. There was a photo. Me, standing at the window of this very apartment, bathed in the glow of the streetlight outside, my shadow stretching long across the floor. I didn't remember anyone taking it, didn't know how they could have. But I recognized every detail. The white curtain, the little plant in the corner, the teacup I always use in the evening. Not a single thing was off. I checked everything. I called in a security technician. I changed the locks. But 3 weeks later, another photo arrived, this time of me sleeping, curled on my side, arms around my pillow. Shot from the left side of the bed. There is no window on that side. I don't know how it was taken, or where from. But I understand one thing, he never left. Maybe he's moved past watching, past playing games. Maybe he's become part of my daily life, like a dormant illness, quiet, incurable. I tried telling a few people. Some suggested therapy. One friend said I should take a long break from work. I nodded, smiled, then went home and pulled the curtains tighter. I still live. I still eat, still go to work, still pay bills on time. But I'm not the same. Every move I make is deliberate. Every habit is monitored, adjusted. I don't keep calendars. I don't use a desktop. I never sit in the same chair more than 3 days in a row. And I never, ever turn all the lights off. Still, despite all this, I hear things. Footsteps in the hallway. The soft click of the doorknob, even when I've wedged a chair behind it. Sometimes breathing, so close I can feel it. But when I turn on the lights, nothing's there. And sometimes it's a letter, slipped under my pillow. No one else has access. No one knows the passcode. No one even knows where I live. I've gotten used to it. The way someone gets used to a scar, no longer painful, but always there. I've stopped asking why. Now, I only ask when. When will he stop watching and start acting? Because I know even now, with a new name, a new home, a new life, he's still out there. The last photo I received was of me, asleep in bed. Last night.